Welcome to Unboxed. I'm your host, Connie Nam, the founder of Astrid Miyu. In these conversations, I speak to founders, investors, and creators who are all breaking boundaries in their space to discover the person behind the brand and what it took for them to build their empires. I'm back with the second episode of your Q&As, and this episode we'll be talking about work-life balance as a mom and a CEO, or as a parent and a CEO. First question, when you got pregnant, what plans did you put in place for your return? To be honest, I had no plans. At that time, we were a startup. We only had 8 employees, full-time employees in the office, and everyone was competent but relatively junior. We had no finance team as a context, so I was running all the payroll, and I guess I was kind of doing the accounts as well. So I had to come back just to pay salaries. And go into the bank accounts. Anyways, I wouldn't recommend this, but I had no plans. I think I was offline probably for 2-3 weeks, and I was at home for 6 weeks, which was recommended by the doctor because I had an emergency C-section. And then thereafter, I came back into the office 3 days a week. And then by month 3, I think I was fully back on track. And I definitely wouldn't recommend this. And I think every founder has a very different journey. A lot of founders that I know have slowed down during their maternity, which is completely understandable. But for me, I didn't want to slow down just because I had a baby. I was in ramp up mode. I wanted to grow the business, and that was my aspiration. So that's what I did. Second question, how did your role change when you became a mom? Oh, this is a really good question. I had to take a step back and really trust the team in order to preserve my energy. Before, I was kind of in and out of everything. But after that, I just didn't have the time or energy to do so. So it forced me to really trust the team and delegate more, which in effect made me a better leader. And I think it really expedited the business because I trusted the team. And ultimately, if you hire the right people, they do the job much better than you do. Next question. Can you share your daily routine and how you prioritize tasks? My daily routines are very rigid. I use my Google Calendar religiously. And pre-kids and during startup phase, I didn't do this. Everything was chaotic, everything was ad hoc, but I really had to do this because having a baby and also scaling up the business came hand in hand. So I had to be very rigid and very disciplined in where I spend my time. So I block off every half an hour. So whether it's meeting or tasks to make sure I get through everything, even social events or spending time with kids, I block everything out, even the weekends. Next question. How do you make sure you have the energy to show up to work? Oh, it's so cliche, but sleep, nutrition, and physical strength are very important. And for me, sleep is the most important thing. Luckily, I've never had problems sleeping except during the baby phase of my kids because I was interrupted. But I always have 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And when, for any reason, I can't have that sleep, I just cannot function. Next question. How do you make sure you're also showing up for your children? So as I mentioned, I block my calendar off and I try to spend quality time, not quantity. And I'm lucky enough to have a very supportive husband and also a full-time nanny at home. So I don't need to do a lot of the cleaning up or chores, which might be very unrelatable for a lot of people. But if I'm there just to play with the kids and have a nice time, obviously it will be much easier. And I'm fortunate enough to be able to do so. And also at home, don't feel guilty about the amount of time you spend with them. Think about the quality of time. So for instance, if you have, rather than spending 2 hours on the phone, in and out with your children, spend 30 minutes, just focus on them, really giving them attention and playing games with them and engaging with them. Next question, how do you avoid burnout? Oh, don't try to do too many things at the same time. I know it's a very cliche answer. So at work, focus on the impact that you have, not the input, not the amount of time you spend on things, especially when you're a founder or a leader. Prioritize your influence and the things only you can do. Delegate everything else. Ultimately, if you have the right team, they're going to do it much better than you do. Next question. How do you maintain boundaries between work and family time? So Google Calendar is my best friend. So ever since having kids, I rarely log back on. after five or six. So I'm very religious about maintaining that balance, but it means that I have to be super efficient and super organized during work hours. And I think like forcing to do that has made me a better leader, and the team have role modeled it. It puts less pressure and less stress on the team because I'm not sending out emails at 3 a.m., which I kind of used to do. I'm guilty of. So making sure that you block off your time and spending your time super, super efficiently during work hours. Next question. How do you make sure you maintain boundaries with your team? I mean, ultimately, like you're the boss, and if you don't respond after 6 p.m. or 7 p.m., your team will follow. You don't need to respond to people just because they're messaging you. Set those boundaries, and they'll really appreciate it in return. No one's trying to outwork the boss or outwork the founder. Another question I had was, how do you deal with mom guilt? This is a really tough one because I battle with it all the time. And I think it's important to surround yourself with people who'll tell you otherwise, who'll tell you that you're doing a great job. Either put some mantras on the wall, or have a reminder, or ask your husband to give you assurance that you're a great mom. Next question. When you're not the boss, how do you set boundaries? I think just communicating to people that you're online at this hour and doing it gently, and doing that consistently, I think people normally get the message. You don't need to be like, oh, I'm only working like this. I think consistently over time, if you don't respond after 6 p.m., people will accept the fact that you don't respond. They'll find a way around it, unless like, I don't know, like the world is ending. Then people will probably call you. Final question. Is there anything you wish you had known earlier about managing these two roles? It's a lot more physically taxing than I'd imagined. It's so physical, having kids, and also having to work. I would have worked out more, taken more vitamins before I had babies and before I turned 40. That's a wrap. Thank you for listening, and tune in for episode 3 of the Q&A session. So if you've got any questions, DM us at unboxed_founderconfidential on Instagram. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to follow the podcast wherever you're listening or watching. You can follow me at Connie Nam, Astrid Miyu at Astrid and Miyu, and the Unboxed Instagram page at unboxed_founderconfidential. See you next week.